Hello, my friend. Welcome. I hope you're having an excellent day. This is Heather. Welcome to the Back to Me podcast. Yay. And, I love the podcasting and, I love talking to all of these super amazing humans that I get to meet and interact with on the podcast. And today is absolutely no exception. Today I am talking with Kristi Sullivan and we're going to talk human design. And you're going to wonder, what the heck are they talking about? But stay with me. Hi, Kristi. How are you?
Hi, Heather. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for this for a lot of reasons. So, I discovered human design probably not that long ago. And man, when you start looking at it, you can get lost. You can get totally lost and dragged down into this. I call it the rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole.
Now I have books and websites and this emails coming in from all these different sources, which I think is super fun. And I wish I had all the time in the world to study it, but I don't. But before we start telling people what human design is, I'd like to know how you got into it. How did you find your way into human design?
Yeah, I discovered it about 7 years ago now. And it came about through a friend who was doing a coaching program that I joined. So I learned the basis of it in her program. But what was interesting is it came at a time I had been doing personal development work. I loved personality assessments, just learning about myself in new and different ways. And I was in a career that I enjoyed, but I also was building a business on the side or trying to build it in a way.
Right.
And I came across human design at a point when the side business or what I had been trying over the years wasn't creating the success that I wanted. And I felt like human design really helped shed a light on why, for me, in my energy blueprint, which is what your human design is, why
Right.
it wasn't perhaps working because I was trying to follow a formula of creating that success that was not exactly in alignment with my unique design.
Right. Yes, I totally understand that. And so you have my human design profile. So there's lots of places you can go and get for free what your design is. And maybe you can explain. I would butcher it if I try to explain what human design is. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what it is.
Sure, I'm happy to. I love to kind of teach sort of the basis of it because it is complicated, like you said. You can find a lot of information online, as you mentioned. And some people love to just go off and investigate and research, but I always say it's great to have a conversation, talk to somebody, especially somebody who's been trained in it. And what I say is human design is your unique blueprint. It's based on your birth date and it shows how you're wired energetically. It's who you are at your core. So I mentioned personality assessments. Those are usually a set of questions that you answer. And over time, that can change. And it's definitely influenced by how you're brought up, the people that you've been brought up by, or things and influences around you, as well as your personal experiences. Human design, though, is how you were encoded, so to speak, at birth. It's based on your birth date. And there are over 3 billion combinations. So truly, rather than just putting you in a box, this really is showing how you're uniquely wired.
Right? So it's not like you can read. So I'm a Sagittarius. It's not like you can open the newspaper and go, oh, everybody who's a Sagittarius right now, this is going to happen to, right?
And there's definitely variations of sort of the interpretations of how human design affects certain groups of people. Like we can talk about energy types, but really, if you want to discover your human design, you go into it understanding that you have a unique blueprint. So even if you and I shared the same energy type, and we don't, I'll explain that later.
Yeah.
But if we did, we still have very different ways of being wired. I had a conversation recently, even how twins who are born just minutes apart, they will probably have the same design most likely. You'll find that again when you run a chart, but their unique upbringing and experiences of their own really are the layers on top of that core design that they are. So there's many layers to human design, and that's why it's hard to say, oh, you're a projector or a generator, which is an energy type, and you don't look like everybody else in that type.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I have. So I am a projector, and we'll tell people what that is. But I know I know several projectors, and we get along really well, but we're not the same. Right.
Yeah, you find some commonalities and some things to share, but definitely there's very different experiences. And we call it the human design experimentation when you take the information you learn about your design and then really apply it to your everyday life. Like, how does it show up for you? How does it feel for you? And it's definitely different for each person.
Right. So I know we start with the basic types. Is that what you mean by energy?
Yeah, that's usually the first layer we look at because it certainly is, like you said, a rabbit hole, and there's many layers to the onion, I call it, that we peel back. The first place we start is usually the energy type. This is a category of energy. There are 5 types. 2 of them make up what we call the generator type, manifesting generators and pure generators. And what they share in common is that they usually, when they're healthy and rested, have a lot of energy. Their sacral energy center, because this takes into account the chakra system, is producing sort of energy throughout the day to be busy and productive. And that's what we're here for. Generators are here to generate, to build, to create, and follow through on things. And then we have what we call the non-generator types, non-sacral types. Those include the projectors like you, manifestors, and reflectors. And if I didn't say this, generators make up 70% and the other make up 30%. Projectors are in their category of about 20%. So it's still unique. And the non-sacral types don't have consistent energy for workforce and life. And what this just means is that you have to manage your energy in a much different way. And you also want to be really mindful of not trying to keep up like a generator, to be busy all day. There are a lot of projectors who are doing that, but it will lead to burnout or even more like unhealthy circumstances, not only burnout, insomnia, it could be other health issues. And usually a projector will wake up at some point saying, this isn't right for me. I need to slow down. I need to shift my life. And so you can probably relate to that, right?
Oh
Heather?
yeah. And you can think about it like the generators make up 70%.
Yes.
So probably most of what we encounter and see and expectations, anything you do is designed for that person. And let me tell you, when I will tell people that when I first went onto one of the websites, found out what it was, went onto one of the websites and put in my information, and all I read was the projector type and what happens to the projector, I went, oh my God, thank God. It was actually because, I love those personality tests. I love all of them. I take them all with a grain of salt. But it was interesting. It was the first time I had read a description of myself that sounded like the inner experience of being me. And I thought, well, there's going to be something going on here because I've never had that happen before, in any like Myers-Briggs, whatever's, you name it. I've never encountered something that sounded like it was so accurate of what it felt like to be me.
And I love that description, how it felt to be you from the inside, because
Yeah.
human design definitely gives you more permission to be who you are naturally. What happens is, we feel a certain way inside, but on the outside, we're trying to appear, a certain way. And we certainly have conditioning and programming that affects us from the outside looking in. And I just love that how you put that, because human design certainly is an explanation of your inner workings, and really it should resonate for you. And if it doesn't, what I usually say is there's been some conditioning, like a
Yeah.
projector
Yeah.
acting like a generator, because we're being taught to work hard, to initiate and do things in a way that, create a life we want, rather than really adjusting to the energy style that we have according to our unique design. And I just want to say, generators are not here necessarily to initiate. It's really also the manifestor type who works in short spurts, that are really like the architects, the initiators, the creators and innovators of, like, wow, I've got this idea. Then they
Right.
hand it off to the generator does their thing. And then if we were all in a happy ecosystem, the projector would share some amazing wisdom and insight to help manage and direct that project. So we each sort of have a certain flavor of energy, and when you understand what's on that inside, it can certainly help you flow and be more uh, at ease in life.
Right. Yeah. I can remember a time when I was working really, really hard. I was a corporate executive, and it was, I don't know that it took me years to recover from that role. Actually, I was only in that role for a year. And I can remember when I left it and I started a new job, I never really, even now I can say I never really got up to that again. It took me a long time to recover. Like it was, I just thought, I'd worked too hard. I guess, but it's funny. Like, yeah, I just worked too hard. I'll recover. But it was like, I worked too hard. I shouldn't have worked that hard.
Yeah, I love talking about burnout, because it's so apparent right now in our society. So
Right.
if you look at it through the lens of human design, some of the energy types, they don't have this consistent, sustained energy to be working, and just they need downtime and rest, or they'll burn out. But I also want to say the generator types, what's important is we need to be doing the right kind of work. Otherwise, we also will burn out. And that burnout right now that we're seeing, it does take time to recover. And it certainly, again, can affect your health, your sleep, your relationships, your success, your abundance, because what you're really doing is being out of alignment. And burnout really just has that effect of showing up as frustration or bitterness, or again, just feeling out of alignment, for what's really best for our energy, and for us to feel more success and satisfaction.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring that up because that's one of the things that I'm doing when I don't use human design at this point, but when I'm coaching people, you know, I'm talking about alignment of the aspects of your life, your physical and your emotional, and how it does cascade into everything else. So you're just saying it's the same thing. If you're out of alignment energetically, which I guess is what I call engagement, spirit, then it does cascade into the rest of your life. And it's really hard to meet the expectations that people have on you because they probably have this, like, everybody's got this generator level expectation of working. I had two thoughts. One was downtime. I think a lot of us have forgotten how to do downtime.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Self-care is a big piece of what I talk about when I do readings, or share and teach about human design. It's in the books that I produce too, because self-care is so key. You don't have to know human design to know that downtime, self-care, putting attention to that inner piece of yourself is really important, and can be what I consider a quick way to start to align yourself. And it's more than just taking a walk and eating well and all of those typical self-care things we think of. It's also some inner work, some deep inner work, like maybe working with a practitioner to help you release self-limiting beliefs, or past traumas, or even ancestral lineage, things that are not serving you in this lifetime.
Right.
So really, it's some inner work. And it's also unique to everybody. It's not one size fits all, one formula. So your self-care and downtime might look different than mine. For the generator types, they may still enjoy like taking a walk, connecting to nature, doing some of that work, so to speak, to address the inside. And for the projector types like you, it might look like taking them naps in the middle of the day, or what my friend calls diva days, where you just clear your calendar and go off on your own, being away from other people's energy, because that's helpful for projectors so that
You know
they're
what
not.
one of my favorite things is?
Yeah.
I go to sensory deprivation tanks.
Oh, yeah. Those are great.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So if you're in Toronto, Float Toronto is my favorite place to go. And don't be scared, you won't be claustrophobic. But it is. I discovered it a few years ago. I didn't know human design at the time, but I knew immediately this is what I need. This is what I need. Everybody's gone. Everything's out. It's dark, it's quiet, and I just float. And it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So we've just we haven't even scratched the surface yet. We've just brushed the dust off. So there's the energy types, and then we go down through different layers of things. So I don't want to overwhelm people, but a quick snap pick.
Yeah. So, what I usually start with when I do a reading for someone, and I can use your chart as an example,
Yeah, totally.
once we peel back that layer of the energy type, the other important key piece is, what shows up and how does that energy type best work with a strategy for life. For the projectors, it's actually waiting to be recognized and invited. And I talk about more of like what that means. For generators, it's waiting to respond. For manifestors, it's informing. And what these really mean are there, again, ways that our energy best is utilized, or how our energy really lights up for each of us differently. So that's a key piece. The other key piece is called your authority. And again, in a reading, we'd go through this and talk about this decision-making capability that you have. It's not unique to the energy type, but actually to each design.
Okay.
So for you, you are a rare authority called self-projected. And this is really typically for just projectors, but I also have other projectors who are mental projectors, or
Okay.
they are intuitive through what we call the spleen energy center. For generators, usually we have access to something called the sacral center for our authority. And
I
what this
kind
means,
of I kind of envy the sacral although what is it called?
self-projected.
Self-projected is pretty awesome because I understand it a little bit just intuitively, but
Yeah.
sometimes I wish I had a little sacral message.
And you probably might if you're around a generator, because
Okay.
oftentimes what's happening is we might pick up some of what somebody around us is, their energy, whether it's feeling or the intuition that's coming from them. So, we're energy beings. And that's why I mentioned sometimes alone time is good for being in your own energy. But sometimes when you're around others, you can kind of pick up energy. It's not technically yours. And what I mean by that is you need to rest and make sure you release that energy before you go to sleep, so that
Right.
you're not, it can affect, it's like trying to, if you're a car, I call it a car engine, and you're picking up some unleaded and you really need to be super unleaded. You can only go with that type of gas for so long.
Right, right.
And what I just want to say back to the authority, just not to confuse folks, is again, this decision-making process is a place in our body that helps us with making major decisions to decide how we use our energy, what things we say yes to, what things we need to say no to. And what happens for often for all of us at some point, because we're taught this, is we're taught to use the head and make a decision with our head center, our head energy. But the head can create confusion. It can be indecisive. And the head is meant to hold information, but it's really a place within our body, in some of the other energy centers, that holds the key to making decisions. So those are some key pieces I would talk about in a reading that with all the other information you can find, those are the key pieces to using human design as a tool for everyday life.
Right. Yeah. And it does shift your thinking of how to approach things. I've noticed that it has shifted my thinking of how to approach things, and it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't even know what to say. It's like just pretty cool. And now your book, which this is the latest one?
Yeah. Well, I've been in several books as a contributing author, but this one I produced with 25 other human design practitioners. It's called Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing. And this is a collaboration of different authors who explain and share their story of how they discovered human design, how it changed their life, and a tip or tool that helps you, if you even don't know human design, to work in alignment with your energy. So it's not a technical book, and it can be for the beginner as well as more advanced. And yeah, so I produced that fully and then have written chapters in some other collaborations.
Right. Yeah. There's sometimes I've noticed when I go to try and find information, there's too much information, and the details sometimes it's like you got to find your easy way in. So I'm feeling like your book would be like, this is just where to start. It's like my Jack and Jill reader kind of thing. Is that a good way to think of it?
It's like a chicken soup for the soul. So it can
Oh, even better.
inspire you with some stories and give you some firsthand perspectives of, what is human design? How have others utilized it? And yeah, just our life stories. So if you like storytelling, this is a good book. Again, it's not real technical because there's so much on the internet that you can find and again get lost in a lot of the technical pieces too.
Yes, because it goes down into gates and channels and um, this and that. Yeah. So let's not make it super confusing. So if you had a piece of advice for each energy type,
Mm,
something simple that they could kind of, because I know people are going to go run and look up what they
yeah.
are.
And I'm going to focus this on self-care because there's so much advice you can give to each type.
Yeah.
But I feel like the self-care piece can help you in your relationships, in your business, in your communication and manifesting what you want. Because again, when you do that self-care piece, you're aligning your energy to what you need. And when you're feeling stuck, for example, in business, it's time to go do some self-care.
Right.
When you can't make a decision and you're feeling just overwhelmed, it's time to go do some self-care. Same when, you feel that frustration or out of balance in relationships or life. So self-care for example, the generator types, the manifesting generator and pure generators, they really need to try to get 30 minutes of movement every day to use up their energy.
Okay.
And again, doing the right kind of work that feels good, not taking on things that are really not the right thing. For the projectors, the manifestors, the reflector types, they all need to make sure that throughout the day, they're getting not 30 minutes of movement, but some time for rest. Very, very important. Gentle movement is great too. And again, just making sure there's rest. And even 30 minutes before going to sleep, they should take time to just relax. That can help them get a better night's sleep. So that's important. Some types also need just alone time. We call this the hermit profile, and that also gives us a reason to just sometimes it's okay to be alone with ourselves. And another self-care tip that I'll throw out there that I already mentioned is just doing some of that inner reflection and inner work, healing and shifting your vibration and your frequency, because that's going to benefit us all as a collective right now too. But
Right.
certainly your alignment will benefit.
And I guess one of the key, I guess it would be similar for all of the different types when they're not in their alignment or they're working against themselves. It's that overwhelmed place, that fatigue. Do they all kind of manifest in the same kind of way, or?
I would say probably at that point, it's really individual. You know, you've seen some, like you mentioned, projector types who will feel burnout, but you'll see generators too. So it can show up across the board in many different ways. That's particularly probably related to, you know, your upbringing, your life experiences, any traumas, and not just capital T, but even the small t traumas that we take on from childhood and that have really made an impact and are running the show, so to speak, behind the scenes. So those are things that are all very individual and can affect you no matter what your energy type.
Right. And I guess even with your blueprint, how you were designed, the I'm thinking the construction of you along the way affects you, which I think you're calling conditioning,
Yeah.
conditioning along the way.
Yeah, and one way I describe it is we can think of it as we're on a road, and that might be our soul journey or our destiny or what we're here with our purpose for. And human design is the car on that journey or on that road. So you can be in one direction and then change directions, but your human design is what stays with you, and which again is that wiring. And so when you have a car, you got to maintain it. You've got to do those oil changes. You need to know if the previous, you know, way that that car was treated needs some attention to maintain that car. So that's really how I describe human design.
That's a good way to explain it. And we all need different kinds of fuel and different amounts of fuel. And yeah, and some of our horns toot louder than
Yeah.
others.
And no two cars really look alike, especially when you look on the inside.
No, definitely not. And so this is, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this. So when people consult you, is it something that it's like a going and getting your cards done kind of thing, where you just go in and get a reading and leave? Or is it an ongoing process? Like, how does dealing or working with a human design practitioner work?
It can be both. And I call practitioners like yoga teachers. Everyone's teaching or showing different styles with the
Mm,
same content. When someone comes to work with me, I often will do a one-on-one reading with them, which is actually 2 sessions that go over your full information in your chart. And then if someone wants ongoing support, we can do either additional sessions, or I have a weekly group that meets. So other like-minded, you know, human design enthusiasts who meet and talk about human design and learn how best to experiment with their energy. And if somebody wanted some more information on my Facebook page, I have videos and podcast interviews like this that
right.
help explain human design. And so, yeah, there's an array of things, but usually I just recommend, if you're really interested in going to look into human design, to meet with a practitioner.
Yes, it's always best to go to the experts. And for pretty much everything, I think about, the joke about Dr. Google, I've got a pain, and you go to Dr. Google, and Dr. Google tells you you're dying of cancer when really you just ate something you shouldn't have. So now, where can they find your book?
So my book's on my website. It's on Amazon, but they can find it through KristiHSullivan.com. And the other place I mention where I build a community is on Facebook, a group called Kristi's Human Design and Self-Care Community. And I'm on Instagram as well.
Cool. And I will make sure that all of that ends up in the show notes so that people who are like, what was that? You don't have to worry about it. You can just go find it, and I'll put it there for you. So it's easy peasy,
Thank
easy
you.
peasy. Make life as easy as possible. Thank you so much for all. I mean, I know that it could go on forever because I've spent so much time digging around my own profile. So, but thank you for your time. But before you go, do you have any final words of wisdom for people?
Just that human design is really something you can use for amazing transformation, and do some of that self-care, and working with people who do this, or life coaching like you're doing, Heather, is just such a great opportunity. And I hope more people do that, because it's just going to help us evolve and help affect the world in a positive way.
That's outstanding. That's my goal too. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and hanging out. My friends out in podcast land, if you don't know what human design is, start small. Don't scare yourself. Call Kristi because she can help you through it. Take care, my friends. I will see you